Hi, everyone. Hope this is very loud. I'll speak quietly. Even though I'm from New York and we tend to speak loudly and quickly, I'll try to tone it down. Great to be here today. So thank you for the warm intro, Sharon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Google Fiber, how we got here to where we are today, which includes a couple of cities here in Utah, and what we're thinking about on the go forward and some of the things we care about, we're working on, and we hope to bring to both Utah and our other markets as we go forward. So first, a little bit about the history of Google Fiber. So about, I would say 6-7 years ago, so at Google, all of our services are online, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Gmail, whether it's search. All of those things require an internet connection to access. And so what we began to notice 6-7 years ago was that whatever work we were doing on our side to make our services faster, to reduce latency. Latency is a magic word at Google. I want to reduce it. Whatever we were doing, there was still these delays that were happening that were tied to the last mile. And so it was really slowness at that end that we began to notice having an impact on our services. Whatever we did, we still needed some help there. So we decided to jump in and say, well, what could we do to help with this particular problem? A lot of people ask me, Jill, how is it that Google decided to become an ISP in the first place? And this is really why we decided to actually put an RFI out there to see if any city wanted to be a gig city. At this point in time, that was a sort of crazy fast idea. It was intentionally set as a very high bar to see if there was any interest in cities welcoming a builder who would bring very, very high-speed internet. So we put out this RFI, and we thought at the time that maybe 8-10 cities would be interested in bringing gigabit speed to their city, and we were amazed, truly amazed, and a little overwhelmed at the demand, which was over 1,000 cities applied, and over 200,000 individuals said, hey, please, Google, come to my city. We had amazing and very funny things. Folks applied. Topeka changed its name to Google Kansas. There was a bunch of other really great stuff that somebody in the Triangle promised. I think it was a city council person said, I'll name his wife was pregnant, I'll name my twins Larry and Sergey, that kind of stuff. So it was very fun. We ended up choosing Kansas City, Kansas at first, and then expanded to Kansas City, Missouri, and then the suburbs around there. And we did that for a few reasons. It's a city that has a whole bunch of industries. It's not a one-horse town. There's university, there's government, there's high-tech, Sprint's there, a bunch of other industries, manufacturing. So we thought, well, this is a really diverse city. Let's try it, see if this can work. And at that point, it very much was an experiment. It was not a business. It was, hey, let's see if we could do this. How would we do this? What are ways we can deploy this, partner with community-based organizations to think about things like the digital divide. Let's use this as an experimental jumping off point. And what we found was that actually it was, the reveal of Mayor Curtis. It was a pretty amazing experience. We built thousands and thousands of miles of fiber in Kansas City. We still continue to construct there today. What we found was that there was demand for very high-speed service. Even though there are not a ton of what are called gigabit applications, just the proliferation of service and speed of service and a different approach to service, that really was something. We got a very warm welcome in Kansas City and realized, hey, this is actually a business. There's demand here for this. Let's see where we can take it next. And so that's what actually brought us here to Utah. I spent a lot of time here in Provo and Salt Lake. That was our next markets that we went to was Provo, Utah. We made the announcement a couple years ago that we were going to purchase the iProvo system. We also expanded to Austin, Texas around the same time frame. And we started to scale from one market to a multitude of markets. And again, we found the same warm welcome and reception from customers who were excited to have a choice. And that's really what, for us, was really exciting about what was happening with internet service, certainly here in Utah, but also in the markets we entered, was that the competitors would raise their bars as well. So it wasn't just folks who were signing up for Google Fiber who would have access to faster speed, to differentiated service. It was other folks in the market because the competitors raised their own bars, which was really great to see. The catalyzing effect, because obviously we can't be every place all at once. That's impractical and very disruptive of traffic and all kinds of other stuff. But it was really amazing to see that traction sort of take shape across the markets we were in. One of the things that we were most excited to see is that when we go into a market, one of the things we believe firmly as a company, as Google Fiber, is that the internet is better if all of us have access to it. The web is better if everybody has access to it. And so working around digital inclusion and a commitment to digital inclusion is something that's really a pillar for us at Google Fiber. We shared these numbers with Mayor Curtis yesterday in Provo, but that since we've entered the market in Provo, the digital divide has been halved, which is something we're very proud of. We have digital inclusion efforts that are really tailored to each of the markets that we're in. We partner with community-based organizations, we partner with the cities themselves to really help try and do our part to make sure that the internet is not just for some, but for as many people as possible. So what's next? So as folks here know, many of you from Salt Lake know, maybe you've been inconvenienced by traffic. We are here in Salt Lake. We're in a number of other markets across the US. One of the reasons we are continuing to expand is that there is an impact here, not just, again, from us, but we are seeing certainly Kansas City, Missouri probably had a lot to do with their speed improvement there, but other markets, again, it's not just us, it's other folks in the industry who are seeing the demand and responding to it, which is pretty great to see. Some quotes from some of the press and comment that we get when we come to a city. It is true that we do see a focus on raising speeds when we come to a market. What would be fantastic if those speeds went up even when we're not coming to a market. That would be great for US competitiveness, broadly speaking. In terms of where we are today, excuse me, so you see our markets here. We're in Atlanta, Austin, Charlotte, Kansas City, and a lot of places around Kansas City. Nashville, of course, here, Provo and Salt Lake, the Triangle. We are engaged in various stages of construction and different models for deployment in a couple more cities. And now we've got cities that are focused just on wireless service over there with our acquisition of a company called WebPass. So we're in a lot of cities. We are growing. We're excited to see the continued demand and to see what entrepreneurs and residents and small businesses do with high-speed service. Our commitment continues. This is sort of our leadership's commitment is really around continued growth and investment in the business, because again, speed matters. Speed matters for not just us as Google, but also lots of businesses that reach their customers, users, and constituents online. One of the things we've learned, and this is something that my team focuses on across the US, is that there's a lot of different ways. Every city is a snowflake, is one of the things we say. So each city, there's a different model for deployment that might make sense. So in some instances, in fact, in most instances, we're doing a lot of digging. You see this on the side of the streets here in Salt Lake. We are actually doing a lot of construction of thousands of miles of fiber. We try to keep it aerial as much as possible, but sometimes we have to dig, traffic, etc. That's by and large the biggest, our biggest model right now is what we call organic construction. But that doesn't work in every place, and it's great if you don't have to dig up the streets and disrupt what's going on. So we have a couple different approaches we're using in different markets. Some markets we actually have a hybrid approach where we're doing all of them. It's really, we're eager to deploy quickly and reach as many customers as we can. One of the things that we are working on is a model where if a city or a utility is building a network, so in this case Huntsville Utilities is a muni-owned utility in Huntsville, Alabama. They were building a fiber to the home network for smart grid purposes. They were looking for folks who would be tenants and interested in leasing some dark fiber, so we are going ahead and doing that. So they're building this network, should be up and running next year, and we're a tenant on the network, so we'll just provide service based on the infrastructure that they're building. And we think this is a model that could work in many cities that are interested in building out their own infrastructure or utilities that are doing so in the US. We're also, wherever possible, if there's existing infrastructure, we don't need to dig up the streets that have already been dug up. So in Atlanta specifically, we're focusing on utilizing a bunch of leased assets that are in the ground. We're also doing that in San Francisco and a couple of other markets because, again, if the infrastructure exists and it's there, we're happy to make use of it. We're not, doesn't have to be owned by us. We're also interested in wireless. So as wireless technologies continue to improve, in certain markets, it makes a ton of sense to reach consumers and customers with wireless. For us, it's really about how do we deploy all these different means and methods to provide abundant internet access affordably to as many people as possible in the markets that we're entering. So for us, it's really more about how do we creatively fit together these different pieces to provide service, again, quickly and in a way that minimizes disruption. We're also focused on policy initiatives that help us do that as well, that decrease disruption, increase safety, and are ways to bring networks to customers as quickly as possible. So One Touch Make Ready here is a way for, instead of having 4 different visits to a pole, to get that pole ready for putting fiber on it, 1 visit, 1 traffic plan, 1 disruption to the city and to the neighborhood. So we've seen some traction there. And microtrenching, which is not new. What's new is, again, the having this toolkit of different ways. Microtrenching is something that we're working with cities to see the value in, again, reducing disruption, increasing safety. No one likes utility strikes, and this is a way to do that. Just tying this back to, I think, one of the themes of today's session more broadly, which is about how does this tie into economic impact and competitiveness. We agree here with the White House that it's affordable, as ubiquitous as possible access that's really going to keep the U.S. competitive. We believe that's, here in Utah, we certainly are making investments to help this vision become a reality, certainly in Provo, and on an ongoing basis here in Salt Lake. And very excited to be here in Utah. I'm excited to be here today. I used to come here a lot when I was working with Mayor Curtis. I'm thrilled to be back here today and interested in hearing more about what everyone else is up to. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of the afternoon.